All right, we are recording. Well, welcome to a cyber forum from the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce. We're happy to host today Dr. Chris Olsen from the McMinnville School District, principal of the McMinnville High School. What we want to talk about today is the school bond that is being proposed to do some renovations on the school district, mainly the high school. And we want to talk about what that school bond is going to accomplish. And then I got some questions, too, that I've gathered from some online posting forums and just I've heard in the community. So I want to ask you those questions as well when you're done. So for those that will be with us following along, I am going to link a link right here. You can pull up that website. That'll show the PowerPoint that Dr. Olsen has passed on to us. And you can find it on the McMinnville site. So welcome, Dr. Olsen. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Nathan. Happy Friday and glad to be here.
Cool. And thanks for testing out this new tech with me. I mean, I think this is pretty cool that people can watch, and it's free and fun. That's what I'm going for. So, well, why don't you take it away? Tell us about the school bond and what's happening.
Okay. Well, Tuesday, May 17th, voters in McMinnville and Lafayette and the surrounding areas that are affected by our school district boundary will have an opportunity to vote on a bond measure that will be put before the voters. It's an $89.4 million bond measure. The fortunate thing for the voters in our community is it is coming at a time that we are paying off a 1997 bond, the bond that built Grand Haven Elementary School. So the district is creating some bonding capacity for the voters. And the work that will be done will come at no cost increase in terms of the tax rate that we're currently paying, which we're pretty happy about.
So let's talk about what that bond is hoping to accomplish. I mean, what are some of the main key components of that?
You bet. There's really 5 areas that we're focused on. The first will be the construction of a new vocational technical center at McMinnville High School. It's about a 30,000 square foot facility that will be built to house a new construction, manufacturing, engineering, horticulture, and computer science labs. It'll be built at the far northeast corner of the campus in a grass area very close to Hembry and 17th Street. That will be the first phase. Once that's completed, and that should take relatively short order to put that building up, then we'll go in and do some further remodeling in the main campus, tearing down a lot of the 1955 area, the oldest part of the building, and build in our career pathway laboratories. There'll be a new fire and emergency services lab, a new health services lab, 2D, 3D art. There'll be a new computer science area, a new engineering space, natural resources. We have a new video and visual broadcasting lab. So that will all be built in the central core. We'll build a new band, choir, orchestra facility, expand our food court, and a new library. That work will happen in the central core, and then we'll build a new fitness, new gymnasium, PE, weights, aerobics, dance, cheer area. And that's the main first two elements of the bond. So the vocational center and the career pathway center on the main campus. The 3 remaining elements of the bond will focus on activities district-wide. So safety and security will be the next major component. We'll do safety and security upgrades at every one of the district's schools. That will include better access controls, camera systems, communication systems, and intercom systems. Everything we can humanly do to make these schools as safe for children and staff we possibly can. There'll also be a lot of seismic upgrades to some of the older buildings that would require that as a result of the work that'll be done. That's the 3rd element. The 4th element will be some work that will reduce the daily operational costs. So it'll be energy controls and energy efficiency upgrades at district schools. Those would include replacement of single pane windows to thermal pane windows, of course, roofs, insulation, replacement of old and aging boiler systems and HVAC systems. Anything that we can do to drive down the daily operational costs of these older facilities and move those dollars back into the academic program. And then finally, the last part will be about $30 million worth of deferred maintenance work that will be happening at the district schools. So a number of our older schools, Memorial as an example, and Newby are two of the older buildings in the district. They'll receive quite a bit of upgrades. Some of our newer schools, Buell, Grand Haven, don't need quite as much work, but it'll be going in and just doing some, what we would describe as called level 1 and level 2 improvements at our district schools, just to bring them up to a standard and improve the facilities, really protecting the investment of the community, an investment that we have made and want to make sure that we can have these buildings be functional well into the future.
Absolutely. When you talk about that, I went online and we have a local paper. And for those that are from McMinnville, they might remember a school that we've talked about, new high school. We've talked about school bonds. And I was on the newsregister.com site reading on some of the articles, and I noted there's about 4 people that tend to comment the most about this. And I thought this was a good position. Most of their comments and questions came down to the fact of, why would we spend so much money to renovate a 1955 building or older? I mean, there's parts of that building that are even older, I think, and not just build a brand new school that would have another 50 to 60 years of lifespan. Like, why work on an old and not a new? What was some of the decision making? Many people in McMinnville are familiar that on Hill Road, there was the property that's owned by the school district that was
Correct.
Identified to be a new high school. So can you walk us through some of the decision makings that went into that, and why they're not doing a new high school? Why renovate an old high school, and what's the trigger?
I'll be happy to. Thanks, Nathan. That was we all started this conversation about 30 months ago with a vision of building a new campus, a replacement high school campus for McMinnville High School. And as we got into the work with the architects and the engineers and kind of the planners, we quickly realized that the cost of that particular building, to go out to Hill Road today and to build a replacement high school for McMinnville High School, would cost in the neighborhood of $140 million. And that's using some of the estimates that are happening with the new Beaverton High School that's being built there on the corner of Shoals Ferry and Roy Rogers. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at those costs, and quickly the Long Range Facility Task Force realized that in order to do that, the immediate result would be we would be going to the voters and asking for a tax increase of nearly $1 per $1,000 of assessed value. And wow. I know the school board and Long Range Facility Task Force did not feel that we are far enough out of the 2008, 2009 recession to go to the voters of McMinnville at this time and say, hey, we want to increase your tax rate. So that was kind of the first major decision-making factor with respect to the decision that was made to do the work here. Mm-hmm. The second issue was that campus, if it were to be built, would be built for approximately 2,200 students. That's about the size of building that you could build on that 44-acre site as a 2,200 student high school. And if it were to be a replacement high school, it is likely, given our current enrollment in McMinnville, we're about 2,100 right now, that by the time it was built and opened, we would be over capacity. And we would either have to put modulars around it, or we'd have to come back and use part of this building as an overflow space for the high school. So what we really decided, and the recommendation to the board from the Long Range Facility Task Force, was to say, there will be a time that we'll need a second high school in McMinnville. And it is likely that the enrollment trigger for that second high school will be somewhere near 3,000 students. At the point that you have about 3,000 high school age students in McMinnville is the logical time that you would split then and have 2 high schools in McMinnville with approximately 1,500 students per school. That way they'd have enough size at 1,500 to be able to offer a full comprehensive program, all the college credit, all the advanced placement, all the activities that are necessary in a large comprehensive high school. And it would take, in terms of our current projections, it will be at about 2048, the year 2048, that based on current enrollment trends that we'd be at that target. So that's where the recommendation then went to the board to say, at the time that we invest in that Hill Road property, we ought to be investing in that Hill Road property for the second high school in McMinnville, not a replacement high school. We are still going to need this campus based on our current enrollment plan. So let's go in, let's do the necessary work at McMinnville High School's current campus. Let's bring it up to an equitable standard So at the time that we're ready to build a second high school in the next few decades, that regardless of where children live in McMinnville, where they live on the west side or the east side, they'll go to a state-of-the-art, beautiful high school. And what we didn't want to do is to have to go spend all of our dollars on a new campus and not be able to do anything with improving this high school, knowing that we're going to need it, and then kids would have an inequitable experience.
Well, it sounds like some pretty solid strategic planning when you think about long-term investments. I think what stood out to me the first couple of times we've talked and I've heard the presentation was that the identification that number one, the tax rate was not going to increase while one bond is being retired because it's been paid off.
Correct.
Another bond is being added to line up succinctly. And that the tax rate, our taxpayers, the people owning homes in this area would not see their tax bill go up because of the bond. I'm not going to say because of the bond. There are other reasons it might go up, but not for the bond reason. And but it would still, because we've grown so much in the last 20 years, it would actually get some more money raised through the bond process. And then the other part was, and I think it's really clear that we need to say this, that we're watching other districts do the adding a high school, building a high school, and not necessarily having the full capacity, because a school district is funded in two ways. And I think we need to clarify that. Maybe you can explain how a school district actually receives funding both from the state and then from the local citizen.
Well, yeah, of course, to build facilities, all capital improvements, you're either going to take those out of your general fund to do that work, or you're going to have to bond to it. And in most cases, there is not enough revenue that you receive in terms of running day-to-day operations to then also do major building. So the dollars that we receive, the per pupil allocation we receive for the state, just funds day-to-day operations of your building, and would, of course, set aside enough money for regular maintenance. But at the time that you need to do big ticket items like major roof repairs or additions or structural improvements, you're going to have to go to your community and ask for a bond. As you said, we're really fortunate that our board has been strategic in kind of staggering these bond measures at about every 10 to 12 years, so that about every decade they can assess what are the needs of the district, whether they are due to growth or just facility repairs, and go to the voters and do so hopefully at a time that won't have a negative impact on taxes by raising people's taxes. And that's the case today, is that here we're able to do nearly $90 million worth of work in our district, and it will not increase the property rate. I think that's a really important selling point, and I know the board has been very strategic in that, and hopes to. I would believe that in about 12 years, in 2028, when the Sue Buell bond is paid off, there'll be an opportunity to create more capacity or more bonding capacity, and go back to the voters and ask again, is it time to do other improvements, other repairs, other expansion of facilities? And that's really a nice opportunity for us, and not, of course, have to really raise the tax rate in order to do that.
Right. Well, and that's it's key. We have to look historically especially when you think about a bond and going forward in the future, that our community has grown almost nearly 10,000 people in the last 12 years. And so to kind of push that forward, in the next 12 years, how much more will our community grow and would be able to afford where the bonds can kind of line up and not necessarily go up in price as far as the taxpayer is concerned, but still generate more revenue. So that is a good foresight to think through. And I think I'm going to also put out, because I mean, the comments on the News Register article and some that I wrote were like, well, why would we put them in an old school? I just want to repeat that the PPL, the per pupil point that the school is funded on, that covers operational expenses. That's teachers, that's staff, that's facilities, that's turning the lights on, it's doing small repairs. That's what that covers, and that comes from the state of Oregon. So
correct.
That is it's important to know. So when people hear in the news schools need more money or the funding sources are down, if something were to happen at the state level to raise income for schools, that goes towards operations, and it's very difficult to facilitate towards a facilities need, such as new buildings or remodels. And so we want to make sure it's really clear to people listening that that is why a bond falls upon the citizens of the town or the community to pay for the facilities that their students
I think the other
educated
thing,
in.
and you kind of alluded to it a moment ago, but I think, I've done this work for a long time, and my only recommendation to the community is you have to be really thoughtful and careful about when you build an additional high school, as an example. And I'll use a couple communities as to illustrate this point. Albany School District had an Albany High School. Now it's named West Albany High School. They built South Albany High School. Mm-hmm. Both of those schools their enrollments have hovered around 12 to 1,400 students, and so they're attempting to run two large comprehensive high school programs with really less than 3,000 students, closer to probably 2,500 students. And so the cost of running those buildings, regardless if the school has 1,200 kids in it or 2,000 kids in it, is the same. You still have to heat the square footage. You still have to have an administrative team. You got to have custodians and secretaries and all the things that go along with it. So, when you have a school that is smaller, on the smaller side, 1,200, 1,400 students, it's unlikely you're going to have enough students in capacity to run a full calculus program and a full advanced placement program or international baccalaureate or have 4 or 5 different foreign languages. It's just very, very difficult. Conversely, look at what our neighbors to the north did when Tigard and Tualatin, when they had Tigard High School, and they decided a little over a decade ago to build Tualatin High School. They did it at a time they had about 3,000 students. And so both of those schools opened at about 1,500. They've grown to 2,000. They're able to offer full comprehensive programs to all of their kids, regardless of what attendance area they live in. And then kind of the last point is that look what's happening right now in Lake Oswego with the Lake Oswego School District. They're contemplating merging Lake Ridge and Lake Oswego back into a single high school because both of those schools have hovered around 11 to 12 to 1,300 kids. And it's just incredibly expensive to try to run a comprehensive program with that enrollment. So I think it's wise for our board to be clear about what the intentions are, to say when we get to 3,000 students or near that point, so in the neighborhood of 2,800, is the time we need to start talking about building a second high school, and we'll have the capacity to fill those, and we'll have the dollars to properly staff them so that all kids will have a like experience. They'll all have access to the quality comprehensive program that we want for all of our kids. And if you do it anytime sooner than that, it's likely you're going to have an increased busing cost because you're going to have to move kids between campus, or kids in one school are not going to have the same experiences or opportunity that kids in the other school. So I think it's the right decision. It's a really smart decision. And I think in the long run, we'll look back and it will have been the right decision for our community.
Absolutely. Well, I want to make sure that we say that the McMinnville Chamber Board approved and has voted to support this bond measure. And one of the main reasons for, you alluded to it quickly, but if our viewers and listeners actually click on the link and look at that PDF that we loaded there, one of the things the high school is going to be building and working on is CTE. So a career technical education. The chamber and the chambers around the state, actually, and communities around the state keep asking their schools, please provide more high-level education that would prepare seniors leaving high school. If they do not decide to go to college, they have skills and skill sets that prepare them not to be just a beginning worker, but an advanced worker. Skill sets like actually knowing how to measure and build and cut and do these processes that would get them into some really good paying family wage jobs quickly. And CTE, focusing on that, having some new facilities and education components for our high school that actually facilitates specifically towards that's going to be huge for our area. It's huge for recruiting businesses that pay those higher wages. And it's a great impact for our community, one that we've been asking for and looking for a while. And so we really appreciate that the school district is making it a priority in this next bond issue.
Yeah,
that's an answer.
And for those who aren't familiar, CTE is career and technical education. They're described programs at the state level. We have 11 CTE, career and technical education programs at McMinnville High School, and then a total of 17 career pathway programs, some of which that aren't CTE, but they are career pathway. All of them in our district kind of receive the same type of attention. But you're absolutely right. They're it's the relevance. When we talk about our high school program, rigor, relevance, and relationships, relevance is the big piece for us around that notion, is that making sure that our students, as they're exiting our high school, have had an opportunity to experience a few things to say, yes, I want to go to a 4-year school and major in that, or yes, I want to go to a 2-year school and get the prerequisites to transfer. I want to go into an internship, a technical program, just having some opportunities and to be first in line. So their resume reflects some experiences that kids in other high schools in our region do not have, will be really, really helpful. Frankly, I will tell you, as having kind of led this process for the school district over the last 30 months, I was very surprised early on as we started to message this work with the community, how much this notion of vocational technical education resonated with our business leaders in McMinnville. It was something from the very beginning when we started to talk about it, everybody was incredibly thankful, because most people who are my age, when they think back to their high school career, they'll remember having opportunities to learn some of these skills that are transferable to the workforce. And they've been absent in our school program for the last, say, 15 years. And now I think McMinnville, again, will be a leader in developing this career technical vocational center, in bringing that back to Yamhill County, so that the workforce that we're producing is state of the art, best, first in line, and ready to go to work.
Absolutely. That's a great message too on that point. Well, I think unless you got anything else, you got any other points you'd like to cover?
No, I appreciate very much, Nathan, the opportunity to kind of talk with you and others about the bond measure. Of course, May 17th is an important date for the children of McMinnville, and we hope that you and everybody else will support us.
Oh, you know what we forgot to say? One of the main reasons, like why May 17th instead of the November regular ballot, there's an important part of this planning process where if our voters pass this bond in May, it now qualifies our district to receive an extra grant, a matching grant from the state of Oregon as well, that has been set aside. And you want to tell us just a little bit about
Sure.
that and how we can leverage this?
You bet. Senate Bill 447, legislation passed in the last legislative session, was the first time that the Oregon legislature has set aside capital matching funds for school districts to do these types of projects, capital improvements. And so we are eligible as part of that application. We submitted our application. Due to the size of our bond and the size of our district, we would be eligible for receiving up to $7.14 million. Now, it is a competitive grant, and it is dependent upon districts that pass their bond in May. So there's a number of districts that are in the running for these dollars, and it will be dependent upon who passes a bond in that priority list to receive the funds. So there's no guarantee. But if McMinnville were to be fortunate enough to have a successful passage of the bond, we're likely that we'll be in strong consideration for those. And so that's just more dollars that we can leverage to do improvements in our district.
Very well said. You know, I grew up in Salem and went to McKay High School. At the same time, I think you were down there at Sprague for a while. And I always envied Sprague. And then I get up here and I see you're leading this school. And now I'm like, oh, I wish I was at McMinnville. What great leadership. So I just want to thank you. I know that it's been announced that you're going to be retiring at the end of the year too. But I think publicly, we as a community, thank you for all the work you've done in our district and with our high school to bring it up to the level of the number of students that graduate with college credits, the accolades, and congratulations on receiving your award as Principal of the Year last year as well.
Well, thanks, Nathan. Just for clarification, as much as I enjoyed the Sprague community, I actually was a principal at South Salem. So,
you know
hey,
what? Oh,
I always joke.
I was still at McKay.
I always joke, that even though that you were at Sprague, you were really a South Salem section, because that attendance area just split off from South back in the 1970s to kind of relate, or 80s to become their own school. But I tell you what, I had a great time in the Salem-Keizer School District. I enjoyed my time at South Salem, but these last 13 years in McMinnville and being able to accomplish the things that we as a school have been able to accomplish has been really rewarding. And I'm ending my time here at MHS at the right time. The school's in great shape. The kids are excellent. We've got wonderful programs, and I'm excited for the next person that has an opportunity to provide some direction to the school. So thanks for all your support, and anything we can do to support the chamber, we're surely going to do it.
Always, we continue to work well together and help prepare our students for the next step in their life. So thanks again. I'm going to end the recording here, and if you have questions, though, I'll put Dr. Olsen, you can be reached at an email, or who should people contact if they have questions on this bond issue?
You bet. Email is great, or they can call me directly at McMinnville High School, 503-565-4200. And my email address is kolsen, and that's OLSEN, at msd.k12.or.us.
I'm typing fast. There we go. That's a long one. All right. There it is. So
Okay.
convenience that. There's the addresses and stuff. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much for this. And have a great weekend.
You bet.
It's Friday.
You bet. Okay. Thanks,
Enjoy your
Nathan.
time.
You bet.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care.